Welcome back to the Saxon Ring for the dawn of a new era. The Enel MotoE World Cup starts this weekend. I'm Amy Dargan, standing alongside me, Matt Dunn, who will be the man running you through all of the MotoE action this year. And a little bit later on, we'll be joined by Bradley Smith, who's racing for the One Energy Racing team. But first things first, Matt, it gives us an opportunity to really run through how this series is going to work, the exciting rider lineup we've got out there, and of course, how testing's gone. So first things first, run me through how the series will work.
Well, six races over 4 rounds. The first round here in the Saxon Ring, of course, going to be just the one race. We got the summer break, couple of weeks off, some time to rest. Then we come back in Austria with another singular race, and then the penultimate round at Misano, a double header, the first of 2. The second one at Valencia at the end of the season, combining with the finale of the World Championship as well. So 2 races there, set to be fast and furious. And
qualifying looks as though it's going to be a really exciting format.
Yeah, absolutely. So fans of World Superbikes or even the Suzuka 8 Hour, they will know Superpole. Basically the E-Pole, it's going to be that. Extremely exciting. You're going to have 40 minutes, and I think it's the combined times from FP1 and FP2 will decide the order the riders go out in. So you have the slowest rider goes out first, the fastest rider from those combined sessions goes out last. They have an out lap, a flying lap, and then an in lap. So it's all on the wall, like completely all on the line. The best lap of the weekend, absolutely, well, just it's all on the line, as I said.
Pressure's on.
Yeah, pressure's on. I mean, pressure's on for everybody. So that's going to be super, super exciting. But the thing is, a couple of sort of details with that one. If it rains, that gets cancelled and it goes into a 12-minute qualifying session, 6 laps maximum. The other thing is, if there's a crash on track and a rider behind gets impeded a little with a yellow flag and whatnot, because with a yellow flag you have to go a bit slower, they then at the end of the session get another run out of it. So it's all meant to be quite fair. But the rider doesn't decide that. It's actually an FIM steward who'll go up to them and say, hey, you can go back to the line now. So
interesting stuff. So we have 2 free practice sessions on Friday. Qualifying will be on Saturday, live from 4 o'clock. And then our first MotoE race will be on Sunday, ahead of the Moto3 race, so that's 10 o'clock local time. Now it's time for you and I to talk a bit more about this 18-rider lineup we've got. There are some big names in there.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so you and me did a rehearsal. We're looking at sort of some of the names we got here, and actually thinking about it, it's like an all-star cast of motorcycle racing from even like the last 20 years or so. You have MotoGP riders here, near enough MotoGP legends almost, 125cc legends, 250cc legends, Moto2 front runners, 125cc world champions, the best from World Endurance, the best from World Superbikes, some World Supersport guys, and even you have Maria Herrera, sensation in Moto3 and World Supersport 300 as well. I mean, where else do you get the likes of Josh Hook from EWC versus Sete Gibernau? You got Randy Depunier there, Bradley Smith from MotoGP last year, Xavier Simeon. The list is endless, and frankly, okay, there has been a bit of an order so far with which one of those riders has adapted first, but all of these people have pedigree. I mean, I've got some more stats here as well. 2 world champions. 43 Grand Prix wins on that list, 9 MotoGP wins, 13 250cc or Moto2 wins, 21 125cc wins, and then you got guys like, so you got Gibernau, who's 46 years old. The youngest rider on the grid's 20. He's young enough to be his son. I won't let Sete hear that in person, but I mean, come on. I mean, it's just what is not there to be excited about with this series.
Well, you mentioned Sete Gibernau, and then also riders like Nico Tirol. Another interesting thing is that we've got riders actually that have been a long time out of racing. Absolutely. On top of everything else they've got to get to grips with, they've got to get that feel back for a race.
Yeah, absolutely. Nico Tirol, who's just been in the paddock talk show we've had here, he said, well, I've had a couple of years out. I've got to get used to racing again. He didn't do too badly in that race simulation. Sete Gibernau, how many years has he had out off the bike? It took Sito Pons a lot of convincing to get Sete Gibernau back on the grid, but he is really, really up for it this time. So yeah, it's not just getting used to it, a completely different bike. It's getting used to the style of racing that there is. They won't have raced anything like this before. Just so many factors to contend with, just makes it all the more exciting.
Well, we are standing in front of the paddock. I guess we should talk more about these Energica Ego Corsa machines.
Yeah,
one thing
absolutely.
that has really stood out, it's been the one consistent thing said about them, is the torque and how massively impressive it is.
Yeah, the torque with Moto e-bikes, they don't have any gears. So whereas you see with the torque on geared bikes, the first gear the torque's massive, second gears get slightly less, third slightly less, fourth. It's like that sort of downward spiral, that negative split almost. But with Moto E with no gears, the torque is the same up until you get to around about 130 kilometers an hour or so, I was told earlier.
Wow.
So and also with no electronics like traction control, we've not seen a major shortage of some big high sides throughout of testing. So there's a lot of power going through that rear wheel, but it's all part of the game. It's all part of the style of this bike. It's the Nicky Tooley, who's just in the talk show as well, said that someone asked him about that. Was he concerned about the amount of torque going through that rear wheel? And he said, well, no, I'm used to it. We've all ridden big bikes. Gibber now is going to be used to it, having ridden 500cc machines. So it's not much to worry about. It's more part of the spectacle.
Well, we'll come back and talk a little bit more about what happened in testing, because I know you were there, Matt. But I think as we've been speaking about the bike now, we should probably get a first-hand experience of it. And bless Bradley Smith, he's here to join us now, but he just got collared for a photo. Thank you so much. Do you want to come in between us and then we can share
sure.
mics?
Let's do it.
No
Bradley,
worries.
obviously, it's a fantastic thing to see the start of the Enel MotoGP World Cup. Firstly, let's talk about the bike itself. How much adapting has it taken?
Yeah, quite a bit. Not gonna lie.
That reaction says it all.
Yeah, but the thing is that I think first and foremost, the fact that the tyres are the same makes my life a little bit easier. In terms of Michelin have followed, like the front tyre follows very closely to MotoGP, just with a softer compound. The rear, I think the profile is exactly the same as the MotoGP, just with a different casing and compound. So in terms of what I feel through the handlebars and through the seat, it's very similar to what I have on the Aprilia. But then everything else is then different. So obviously no gearbox. So riding an automatic. No sound, and then a bike that's like over 120 kilos heavier, or at least 100 kilos heavier than what I have, inside a GP. So they're the main things that I had to worry about, and then also riding style a little bit, because you've got no power to what I'm used to. Everyone else is saying
you're on a MotoGP bike.
Everyone else is used to saying, oh man, this thing's got power, this thing's got power. I'm like, this thing is dead.
But MotoGP riders say that about superbikes.
Yeah, exactly. About superbikes, about 450 motocross bikes, it doesn't matter. So for me, it's kind of like dead. So I have to, instead of waiting for the apex and then looking for the apex and then picking it up from there, I have to go in and already start to open. I said it on the talk show earlier. Man, I feel like I'm back in 125s again. It feels like back I'm 15, 16 years old and riding these things. So it's a challenge, but it's a good one at the moment, and I'm competitive and fast. So they're the main things.
Matt, I'm giving my arm a rest.
No problem. My left arm's getting a bit tired as well. Anyway, I want to ask you a little bit more about that, because the first test when we got here, everyone's talking about the torque back in Jerez, and it looked like the riding style you wanted it to be a bit more like Ving around the corner, steering it up on the fat part of the tyre, and then powering out of the turn. But now, so we've seen it in the results, Moto2 guys are used to massive corner speed. They seem to be adapting better. Is that how the style is adapting more with these bikes?
It seems to be adapting more and more. Also, in the last couple of tests, we've had a softer compound rear tyre, which seems to have a bit more grip on the maximum angle. That's why I think I got away with having quite a big gap after November tests, because for me, it felt really like a MotoGP riding style. You had to pick it up. It spun quite a lot out of the corners. I felt like I had more advantage. And then they went and introduced like the extra soft tyre, and then the Moto2 guys come out to play. So, we just have to adapt to what we're given. And each track, I think, will be a little bit different, depending on the nature of the track, depending on how hot it is, the tyres. We only have one compound. So the riders are going to be the ones that have to adapt. And it'd be interesting to see how that plays out.
Bradley, obviously in the MotoGP press conference we just had, the question was put to the riders about what they thought of the championship, and the big thing that's come up, no surprises, is the noise. But Maverick Vinales actually pointed out something quite interesting, in that he said, I don't understand how they ride without noise.
It is surprising we do have noise. Although it's a whir, there is a reaction between, otherwise a rider couldn't ride. It would be physically impossible. So it's quieter than a normal bike, and you really have to listen for it, and it probably took guys a good 2-3 days to get their mind, okay, that's what that means, that means. When it starts to slide, okay, that's a little bit too much. But there is a connection there, of course. For the spectators on the outside, I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna miss something for those guys. That noise, that roar, that feeling of speed, that's gonna be missing. But from the television and from the racing aspects, it's gonna make up for that more, in certainly how close it is and how exciting it is. I really feel that this is gonna be a similar to a Moto3 race, with everybody really close together. So I think for the fans and for all of those guys, they're going to really enjoy it.
Can't wait.
The guys after the first test, Nicola told me that some of the riders came in and they said there's a strange noise happening through the corners. What on earth is going on there? Tell us about that.
Yeah, knee sliders. I actually had to change my compounder knee sliders because it was annoying me too much. Yeah, the noise was really, really loud. But also you get it on the curbs as well. You actually hear the suspension, like when it starts to clunk and when it starts to move, and a little bit of head shake as well sometimes, because we don't actually have steering dampers as compulsory on these. So at the moment I'm running without a steering damper, and when it starts to shake you hear it also. So there's all these little details that you couldn't imagine make that much noise, but when you don't have the noise of a GP bike you hear. So again, just getting familiar with it, trying to figure it out inside your head, understanding all these intricate details, because like Maverick said, we ride very much on noise, feel like that sensation of engine tone and pickup. So it's like retraining your brain almost to start again.
That's exactly why Alex Rins said he crashed. He was waiting for the engine note to kick in and didn't hear it, so he didn't brake. Anyway, I just want to ask you one more question. You obviously were there in the timings when it came to testing, but you were on MotoGP duties for when they ran the race simulation. What are you expecting on Sunday? I mean, because the thing we should probably mention is that it's not normal testing. It hasn't been normal testing for these guys. They've had so much to do in terms of development of the bikes, development of the championship when it has come to testing, and obviously there's been a limit on it. So just explain what you're expecting, really.
Very close racing. I think that's what it is. But mistakes at the same time, because there is such close racing between everybody. I really feel when people's adrenaline are going and everything's for real, you can easily tie these 260 kilo machines up in knots, when the runoff areas are going to come pretty quick, in a few areas. So, trying almost to keep that extra little bit of enthusiasm in that back pocket, trying to rein it in a little bit and get it through the first round, because like I said, there's only 6 races in this championship. Points at everything, and especially you can't win championships in the first one, but you can certainly throw it all away. So also EPOL, it's another one. You make a mistake in EPOL, you start from the back of the grid. Like in terms of you run off the track and you lose all that time, you're starting from the back. You go on the green, over track limits, you start from the back, because your lap time's cancelled. You crash, you do all of these things, you start from the back of the grid. So it's almost that calculated gamble of, okay, how much do I go and how much do I try and do it? But that's quite nice to be talking about. I haven't spoke about potentially going after a championship for a long time, so it's good at the same time.
And so just I guess we should probably finish that with you on that note. What are you expecting from this year? Very, very clear what you want, but how likely do you think it is?
At the end of the day, I wouldn't be here if I didn't think it was possible, and I'm sure my team wouldn't have hired me in if I didn't think it was possible. So, going for the championship is key. There's a lot of factors, as we know in motorsport. Some that are in control, some are out. But in terms of the ones that I can control, I do everything I can to be on that top step come the end of the season.
Good luck, Bradley.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. See you later.
Okay. So we've not got very long, Matt, but I think before we close things up for tonight, I just want to touch back on what you saw in testing. Were there any standout performers?
Yeah, so we've not had him on the show. Obviously, we've been talking to Bradley Smith. He missed out on that race simulation that happened in Valencia. They did a full race weekend simulation. They tried the ePole. They tried lots of free practice sessions. They actually did some playing around with the starting grid as well and some formations on that. I think the race actually started with riders in first position and third position on the grid. Then the row behind in position 5 and position 7 to just try it out a little bit, because there were some riders were worried about approach speed and the amount of riders going into one turn, etc. And because the riding style seems to be so much about corner speed, which I'll then talk about which riders that benefited, it's less about sort of stop and go. They're a bit concerned, like, okay, do we want to be braking that hard into turn 1, etc. But I think they're going back to just a standard grid formation. But the riders that's standing out is very much a Moto2 style. So you've got the likes of Granado, Nicky Tooley, Hector Garzo got the e-pole position last time out, and so you can expect all manner of these Moto2 riders. Nico Tirol's come forward towards the front as well, 125 CC World Champion. Guys who are racing those lightweight two-strokes, who are used to getting that massive corner speed, they're going to be the ones that I think you can expect to see up the front fairly early on. But then it's not going to be long before some of the greats of the sport that we've got like Gibber now there, figure it out and come there. But they haven't got long because
No.
it's 6 races and 4 rounds.
Thank you so much for all that information,
problem.
Matt. You are going to do a marvellous job up in the commentary box.
I surely hope so. Be nice to everybody.
I can't wait for ePole. That
No,
for
me
me is
neither.
going to be a real jaw-dropper.
And it's going to be a real stat attack as well, with like 1 minute 40 seconds talking about all the
Yeah.
riders. So.
So like we said, obviously we've got 2 free practice sessions tomorrow. ePole will be Saturday at 4 o'clock live, and then our race on Sunday at 10 o'clock. But from myself and Matt Dunn, that's all for now, and we will enjoy the start of the Enel MotoE World Cup. How's your shoulder?